Today's podcast is brought to you by Faith versus Fear, Breaking Family Ties, now available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. You are now listening to Renewed Mind Revolution podcast with your host, Michelle Kakal. You are now listening to Renewed Mind Revolution podcast with your host, Michelle Kakal. Please begin to take that good deep breath as we begin to refresh, recharge, and reset. Let's go. Welcome to Renewed Mind Revolution podcast with your host, Michelle Kakal. As always, it is my honor and my pleasure to be able to share some tips and tools with you that I know will assist you in becoming a better you. Yes, you, and you. I love what I do. I just want to encourage you guys to share this podcast with those that you believe will benefit and will be able to get some type of assistance from this podcast. Someone you know that is a need that these topics resonate with, please. It's caring is what sharing, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to share this podcast. Remember that all the information that we share pretty much comes from the books Faith versus Fear, as well as Breaking Family Ties, which is available on Amazon.com, as well as Barnes & Noble. Listen, I also want to remind you really quickly, I'm trying to get these preliminaries out of the way so we can get on to our topic today. Next week, November the 11th at 11:30 a.m., I will be interviewing our very special guest that I promised you all early in the year. What's so funny is I had not even met this person yet or anything. They had reached out to me way after I told you all that I would be having a special guest. Isn't that amazing how that happened? I had another person in mind, and this person reached out, and I'm so excited that she did because I am so interested in this topic. Her name is Michelle Saunders Gotch, and she will be talking about the emotional healing of a childhood cult survivor. You know, for those who know me directly knows that this is right up my alley. I absolutely love this topic. I've been studying this my entire life, right? I really have a huge interest in cults. I've been studying them since, really, to be honest, since I was a teenager. No one made me. It was just something that intrigued me. So to have the opportunity to directly speak to someone who has been affected by this is amazing to me, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and so grateful for my listeners who are going to be able to hear this. I'm so glad that you guys are going to be able to experience this. This is really important. Her testimony is great because I'm always teaching you guys that from our pain comes our purpose. God took her through this situation and allowed her to birth forth her purpose. Okay, so this is going to be amazing. Don't forget, next week, November 11th, 11:30, we are going to be in deep discussion with our special guest. Now, listen, today as I prepared for this week's podcast, I was thinking, what can I give? What can I share? And, you know, oftentimes I think about what I need, you know, because sometimes what you're going through is something that somebody else might be going through, right? And so, you know, in this case, it was just so simple. It was just an empowering statement. And it is, you can make it. You can make it. And listen, I'm not going to be before you long, as I always say, right? It's a very cliche preacher, Baptist preacher thing to say. I won't be before you long. And normally the joke is that they will, you know, be before you for hours when they say, I won't be before you long, or I'm getting ready to tie it up, right? And then they just like keep going and going and going. It's a joke. But I really will not, you guys, be, you know, before you long with this. But I just really wanted to drop a nugget into your life on today. I wanted to take my time and share with you guys some words of encouragement. I feel like we need, especially the closer that we get towards the holiday. You know, I normally do a special for the holiday, and let me be really transparent and honest with you guys. That is one of the most popular, the most downloaded episode is the episode for the holiday. Last year was called Holiday Blues. And as I look at that particular podcast, regardless as to what platform it was shared on, it is the most popular podcast. So that lets me know that it is something that people do deal with, right? Because as soon as they haven't even heard it yet, but when they see that title, they are drawn to it to listen, right? So as we approach the holiday, because now we are currently in the month of November. This podcast is recorded in the month of November. And so we are heading towards the holiday season. And, I always talk about, my experience and how the holidays has affected, me and my life and my family because of loss, right? Loss of loved ones, etc. And then there was a lot of other things that played a part when I was, a young mother trying to provide and make enough for, my children and everything. So there's so much experience that comes with the holidays. And so as we get to this point, I want to encourage you all, before we even start this whole hustle and running around and, just being an autopilot and scratching to make things, work, and scraping to put things together and feeling pressure and feeling, this weight of that coming. I want you to know that you can make it. I can make it. You can make it. We can make it. I want you to be encouraged today that whatever news you received, wherever you are right now in your life, whatever, email, phone call, voicemail that you received today, you can make it. You can make it. I want you to know that. Let me encourage you. Let me remind you, so that even if after you have listened to this podcast right now, you might be saying, I'm not having any of that right now. I'm fine. I haven't got an email, phone call, text, or anything. There's nothing that I'm facing, challenging, dealing with. Okay. But just so happen, if you find yourself in a situation that, is causing a pause, talk about that, a pause in your life, I want you to know that you can make it. The only defeat in life is when we give up. When you choose to step aside and not participate, when you decide and choose that you're not going to get involved in life anymore, that's when you lose. That's when you have failed yourself. But when you choose every day that despite the circumstances and despite the situations that you are going to participate, you have won. You are successful. And I'm saying this because everybody don't understand that. I have been around people who really just don't get it. They don't understand that, for some people, life has been very challenging, very difficult, and very hard. And so for them, the simple things in life that comes easy to others is really hard and really challenging. So, I'm here for those people to tell them you're doing great, to remind them that you're awesome, and to remind them that you are going to make it. Like, this situation, this event is not going to take you out. It's not. And what's amazing is that you've been here before, or you've faced something similar to this before, or you have faced or dealt with something worse than this before. And so because of that, you can make it. It's about you being reminded. It's about you accepting that, realizing that, Because sometimes when you're in the moment, when you're caught up in the situation, you don't take a moment to reflect. You don't take a moment and say, God, if you've done it before, you can do it again. You don't take that moment and say, this is familiar and I've been here before, I can do this again. No, what we do is that we recognize where we are and we let that situation consume. We give it more power than it has to have, more power than it should have. We need to recognize that situations and circumstances that are in our lives are, they're momentarily. A lot of our concerns and issues are momentarily. And it does not mean that it does not hurt. It does not mean it's not effective. It does not mean that it's not, causing pause. It does. I'm not taking none of that away. Absolutely, it does. But I don't want us, me, you, to become so consumed with that we forget that we can make it. We forget that it's a moment. It's not a lifetime. And I think I shared before that I have a quote out there. And it states that, we should not set up camp in places that is designed for us to go through. It simply just says that do not set up camp in a place that was designed for you just to go through. And we do that. We make a moment a lifetime. We make a moment a lifetime. Something that you were literally supposed to learn the lesson, go through, and we make it a lifetime. And I understand. I'm always telling you guys, I get it. I do. I understand it. But once we recognize that we have an obligation to do what? Fix, change, refresh, reset, and move on. We have that obligation to ourselves to not keep banging our heads against the wall, making the same mistake and literally going around in a circle. I remember when certain things, has happened in my life, my thing was get me off of this awful ride. That was the symbolism that I had. My symbolism was, being on like this constant, ride that's just repeating over and over again and becoming very nauseating and frustrating. I was, get me off this ride, get me off this, because it's repetitive. It's repetitive. And let me tell you something. Once something just repetitive, it becomes frustrating. It becomes aggravating, right? Because no one wants to just constantly, even your, even if you have a system in the morning, right, or in your day, every now and then you have to switch it up just a little bit, because if you don't, it becomes redundant, and redundant in all situations is just not good. Some situations you kind of, I like my system, but in certain situations, like, no, I need a switch up. I remember my youngest daughter. I thought it was so funny because she had this awareness from a little girl. She first started school, and she would get up in the morning, her little ritual to get ready for school. She'd go to school, come home, her little ritual for after school, and and she'd do it every day, same thing. And one day, she looked at me and she just said how frustrated she was, because she said it's the same thing every day. I get up, I eat, I get dressed, I go to school, I spend time in school, go to the classes, come home, eat dinner, do the same. She was so frustrated. And I laughed because I said to her, how do you have this awareness at this age? Like, I didn't get that awareness until I start working. When you have to get up in the morning and clock in and deal with the work day, and then you clock out, and then by the time you get home, you feel like you got to do this all over again. You kind of like live for the weekend. She had this as a little girl going to school, and it just blew my mind. It blew my mind. And so, I try to, switch it up. She come home from school sometimes. Let's go out to dinner. Let's do this. Let's just switch things up. Let's have something interesting. Let's do karaoke on Fridays. We did that for a long time. Like, try to switch things up, because it's true. It's true that, everybody can't do that. And I realized that, at a young age, she just couldn't do that. And I respected that, because once I got to a certain age and, started working, I had this, awareness. She was way far advanced than me, but I had that awareness of, this is no place, no way to live. Like, this is just same. And so I get it. I get it. We need to make sure that we are being truthful to ourselves, and we are being honest with ourselves, and we're living the best life that we can. Whatever cards that you and I are dealt, those are the cards that we have. And you have to work those cards. Do you hear me? Work those cards. Earlier today, I had, this thought before I even did this podcast about how often we are hard on ourselves. How we value so many others' opinions, but we don't even value our own opinion. Now, some people, they value theirs way, too much. Be wrong is, two left shoes. But there are some people who have a voice, that's important, that needs to be heard, and you're pretty much valuing everybody else's opinion of yourself, your situation, your life, and you're not valuing your own voice. And so I'm here to tell you, your voice matters. This is something that I shared earlier, even on social media. Your voice matters. Your opinion matters. What you say is important. It does matter. And so that goes back to my point of me encouraging you to remind you of your worth. You can make it. You can take it. Your voice matters. Your opinion matters. Open up your mouth and don't be ashamed, of what you have to say. You have input in this world. You have something that somebody needs to hear. Your challenges and your, even your trauma that you've gone through, that you think that, no one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear my sob story. Yes, they do. And not to be nosy, but because they need to hear it, to be encouraged, because they in secret might be dealing with the same thing that you came out of. And you wouldn't know unless you share. So your opinion, your story, it matters. Your testimony, it matters. Your voice is my point. It matters. I have had a very difficult time throughout my entire life, and this is transparency. Sharing. Because I felt at one time in my life that, what can I give? What can I give? What is it important that could come out of my mouth to give to someone else? And the truth is, once again, we dummy down ourselves. But then I can look at someone else and just be like, think to myself how powerful their voice is, their story is, how powerful they are. And it took someone else that was not, connected to me at all. It took others that was not connected to me, that had no hidden agendas, that did not know me, for them to tell me how impactful my story, my voice was, my testimony. It took them to do that, because, and don't get me wrong, it still was a challenge for me to be as vocal. It still was. And every now and then, to this day, it's something that I have to, challenge, face this challenge. Every now and then, it still creeps up. I have to face that challenge. That yes, you do have something to say. And yes, your voice do matter. We will entertain foolish talk. We will entertain nonsense. And we would entertain people who are speaking negative and talk about everybody else's lives. And I know there's a role for people in this world. Even if it's, celebrity gossip, that's their role, that's their life. But how impactful is that to you personally? Let's be realistic. How impactful is that to you personally? But my point is, we will give them praise. We will give them, accolades, right? But then our voice, we shush our voice. We quiet our voice, quiet our purpose. We quiet our story. We quiet our testimony because we feel as if it is not significant, it's not impactful, it's not powerful. Well, the same way that someone encouraged me that had no hidden agenda, it's the same way I would like to encourage you, because sometimes we just need it, and sometimes God knows that, and He sends us what we need. And so if you are that person today that needs that word, that needs that support, that needs that encouragement, please receive this from me. Please receive this from me when I tell you that your voice matters, that you matter, that your story matters, your testimony matters, and that the world needs it, and that you need to open your mouth and speak. Do that. And please remember that you are valued, you are fearfully, wonderfully made, and that you can make it. You can make it. Listen, I told you I was not going to talk long. It wasn't a joke. I was not trying to set you up for a long conversation. I definitely was not trying to do that. So I just really wanted to encourage you guys, because I felt like that is what was needed on today, was just some simple encouragement, a simple reminder, right? A PSA. Listen, you can make it. Yes, your voice matters. Yes, your voice matters. I hope that was helpful. And I hope that you are encouraged to get up from where you are today and make something happen. Get up from where you are today and make something happen. Listen, it's been my honor. It's been my pleasure. God bless you guys so very much. Remember that I love you, but most importantly, God loves you more. You have been listening to Renewed Mind Revolution Podcast with your host, Michelle Kakal. God bless you.